Hi, I'm Lauren Schuler, and I am a trauma and addictions therapist. I am here to talk about sex addiction, what it is, what it isn't. So, sex addiction is an addiction similar to alcoholism or drug addiction that includes things like tolerance, craving, withdrawal, obsession, and an inability to stop behavior despite the consequences. It is progressive, and sex addicts feel ashamed, isolated, and distressed by their behaviors, and they want to stop. However, they can't. So that's what makes something an addiction, is when somebody is distressed and facing consequences, but they are unable to stop their behavior or their substance use despite their best efforts, even though the consequences are continuing and get progressively worse over time, as do the behaviors and the substance use. So one thing that people often confuse sex addiction with is hypersexuality. Sex addiction is not someone who just likes sex or is very curious or sexually active or fluid in their sexuality or engaging in a wide variety of sexual behaviors. None of those things make someone a sex addict or have anything to do with sex addiction. Sex addiction is about loss of control over certain sexual behaviors that are causing harm to self and others. There are victims, real victims, and lives ruined as a result of sex addiction. So here are some examples to give you a very clear idea of what that looks like. Okay, sex addiction is the man who had many affairs on his wife and spent the entire retirement savings for the family on prostitutes and sugar babies. Sex addiction is the woman who is having many one-night stands with strangers, is flying around the country to have sex, is showing up randomly at strangers' doorsteps to meet them for the first time, and risking getting assaulted or killed. Sex addiction is the guy who is up all night cruising parks looking for casual sex partners, having unprotected sex despite having contracted an STD. Sex addiction is the woman who cannot say no, has sex with anyone who asks, and does degrading and humiliating and painful and hurtful things to herself because she can't say no and she cannot stop. Sex addiction is the guy who solicited a prostitute and then came across her pimp, who then attacked and threatened him and his whole family. Sex addiction is the guy who was soliciting prostitutes and then got arrested and now has felony charges, lost his job, and is facing prison time. There are real consequences to the sexual behavior. It is progressive, it gets worse over time, and there is a total loss of control. The good news is sex addiction is very treatable. With a specialized therapist, so either an ASAT or CSAT, somebody who has specialized training in sex addiction treatment, and a 12-step program, people will have maximum success with recovery. Sex addicts can and do recover, and my clients are among those. Now, sex addiction treatment is definitely not a joke. This disease is not a joke. It takes effort, it takes commitment, and it takes people who are willing to do the hard work and look at themselves, but it is absolutely doable. And one thing to know is the cure for sex addiction is not to swear off sex altogether and become celibate or vow to be a nun. That's not what it is. Recovery in sex addiction looks like removing all of the addictive and harmful behaviors, the things that one can never safely engage in again, and replacing them with healthy relationships and wonderful, healthy, safe, intimate, loving sex that is fun and enjoyable. I hope this helps to give you an idea of what sex addiction is.